Hi, everyone.
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์ครับ
สวัสดีครับท่านอาจารย์
สวัสดีครับอาจารย์
Start with your question. Okay.
Okay, go ahead, Hung, and Anne, I can hear you saying something about having a question.
Yes, because yesterday Anne and I listened to the very old audio. I think I recorded when you and Thanachan were in India, maybe in the English discussion. So it's mentioned about the dhatu element. So I will listen that Punina asking about why the seeing and hearing is different. So Thanachan answer because of the different dhatu. So could you further explain more about this? Because it seems unclear for me. Yes, thank you.
So the original question was why seeing and hearing are different, is that right?
Yes, it's different
they are
because of the dhatu. It's different element.
Yes, different functions.
Oh, I see.
Seeing cannot hear and hearing cannot see.
So yeah.
Each performs a particular function only.
You mean the function of chitta, right? It's the
Yes.
seeing and hearing. It's the nature of the chitta.
Well, that was the question, wasn't it? Why is seeing consciousness different from hearing consciousness? Was that the question?
Yeah, so how is related to the dhatu element? So it's another meaning of the nature of chitta, is element.
So when we're talking about the dhatus, the visible object is one dhatu, the eye sense is one dhatu, the seeing consciousness is one dhatu, sound is one dhatu, the ear sense is one dhatu, the hearing is another dhatu. So seeing and hearing are different dhatus, different realities. They're both chittas, but they're different chittas with different functions, experiencing different objects. So always different dhatus, different elements with different characteristics and different functions.
And I would add that the dhatus are a means of classification of realities. So we know that each reality is different from every other reality to start with, don't we? Hung. Is that something that you find okay? You're okay about? Each reality is distinct,
I'd like to hear more
unique.
about that.
Each reality is unique. Each kind of reality is unique and distinctly different from all other kinds of reality.
I think
Would that be something you are okay with?
Hung the concern was more, we have the word element, dhatu, reality, Dhamma, and they're each different ways of classifying realities under different names, but the realities themselves don't change. It's just a different name for them. Is that accurate?
Yes, not so much a different name for the reality, but the realities are classified differently according to the different means of classification. So when they're classified as khandhas, seeing consciousness and hearing consciousness are both within vijnana khandha. So that's just how they're classified as khandhas. When they're classified as dhatus, they are separate dhatus. And the other classification we're more familiar with is ayatanas. And there's also the classification of the 4 satipatthanas. And each type of classification, it says in the commentary that the classifications are different in order to highlight different aspects of realities to help the understanding of people with different accumulations to appreciate the significance of the classification. But the realities, as Anne says, are the same, no matter how they are classified. The realities don't change. They still have the same function and characteristic.
And when we say dhatu, my understanding is that is, the Pali word is dhatu, and in English we've called it element.
Right.
Isn't that right? Yeah.
So it highlights the impersonal nature of the realities. We're not accustomed to thinking of seeing consciousness as just an element, or consciousness at all as just an element. We think of it as part of me, an integral part of me. But the Buddha explains that all realities are impersonal elements. And they are classified in the way that we find them classified, as a way of explaining that.
That which has a characteristic, dhareti, is a dhatu. So it's from dhareti, to carry its own characteristic. And that which is a dhatu is a dhamma. That which is a dhamma is a dhatu. Seeing and hearing are both dhammas. They're both, as Jonathan said, vijnana kanda. They're both manayatana. But when we look at dhatus, they are, one is seeing consciousness dhatu, one is the hearing consciousness dhatu, different dhatus. So it shows their different realities, different characteristics. It highlights this and experiences the object through different doorways. But perhaps Ajahn will add more about what she was highlighting when she was talking about them as different dhatus.
Usually, we would like to understand by way of number and word. But what about the reality? Dhatu is Dhamma. Whatever is real is Dhatu. But they are different. That's why we learn to understand the difference at this moment as much as we do, or we can do, to understand the truth of each one. But it doesn't matter at all what the number of the dhatu is, because when we think or understand that whatever is real must be dhatu, no one at all. But even they are dhatu, they can be classified by different ways. For example, that which arises and can experience just one object, like seeing. It cannot experience sound or other rupa at all. And seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, to understand the difference, because they are in daily life. Seeing now is not hearing or thinking at all. That's why we learn about different dhatu when one appears, to understand that the nature of it is as it is, no one there at all. So at this very moment of seeing or a dhatu, so the seeing itself is dhatu, which experiences the visible object. And the object itself cannot experience anything. So it's a dhatu which cannot experience. This is the way to learn about the truth, not about the number, or understand that they are different, because Seeing cannot hear and cannot touch. That's why it's the moment of what is there. Only that reality, the seeing only, which can see. The other citta does not perform that function. Just learn to understand this in order to let go doubt about the reality, not about the number or the way it is classified like that. That's why from understanding that how deep, how subtle what now appearing, what is now appearing, that's why it cannot be understood directly, even just one word like nama or citta or rupa as it is. That's why I begin to understand the point of listening, to understand the truth. But if one would like to understand more about the number, one can look it up in the Tipitaka, Abhidhamma, and so on. But then it's gone. Not we remember the number, but the reality is there. So in life, it's quite very little comparing to ignorance from years and years ago, conditioned this moment to be unable to understand the truth, even is there. But from hearing again and again, and consider just whatever is there is real, whatever is real is only tattoo. It has its own characteristic and its own function and so on. If we learn a little more, just to understand deeper, to get away, get rid of the accumulation of understanding, wrong understanding, taking it for something or self all the time. So if we just want to understand at that very moment what is there, it's the word, what does it mean? It means now, right now. What is there is hard to see. Otherwise, it cannot condition right understanding to get closer and closer to the truth of that which is now appearing. That's why for me, I think that learn to understand the word of the teachings about what is there in life, to begin to understand gradually, little by little, as it can condition moment of understanding the characteristic of that which appears as not anyone at all. Even there is the understanding of the tattoo. But now, what is tattoo? It's there now, unknown all the time. So I think that when we learn to understand the nature of what is there now, it doesn't matter to think about number or what is called or so on, but it's there now, a tattoo. The visible object cannot be changed. It has to be that which is seen now, and the reality which sees can just see. That's why when we come across the number of the tattoo, it can be understanding of the difference between the tattoo, which just arises to experience one object, or the other can experience more than one, and the other can experience more than that, and so on, to learn about the truth of what is there, to let go, the clinging, taking it for I or something, because the ignorance and clinging is so very enormous. No one can imagine that it's there all the time, from birth on and on, at moment of seeing, hearing, smelling, everyday life. It is added, accumulated on and on, until hearing about the truth, to understand that each word just point about the truth of this moment. Is that not permanent at all? Seeing as we think that it's so long, in truth, Buddha taught about one moment of tattoo arising and falling away. So the nama tattoo, and if we classify the Chakku Viññāna tattoo, it only the name represent that which is now appearing to be known as it is. So what about thinking about the number and so on continues on and on and on, but no understanding of what we are talking about, like tattoo right now. So I think that we need to be careful to consider what is there in order to understand the subtlety of that which is now appearing. It is not as it is. Thinking about that, how much ignorance, madness, crazy, taking that which just arises and falls away in split second to be everything in life, this or that all the time. But in truth, nothing lasts at all. Just very shortly, keep on, continuously arising and falling away for one another all the time. So very, very quickly, unknown. That's why learn to understand the difference between the moment of seeing. And seeing is not that which is seen, different tattoo. Because seeing cannot be other kind of citta, and that which is seen cannot be heard, and so on. Just develop the understanding of what is taught about is to understand what is there now. So all dhammas are tattoo. Is that enough? Whatever arises, whatever is real, it has its own characteristic. That's why it can be taken for anyone at all. Ignorance is there. Wrong understanding with attachment, instantly take it for something all the time in one's life, everyday life, when there's no understanding of what is there as it is. And now all are dhatu. Which one? Seeing is a dhatu. Do you mind about the name? Jakku Vinyana dhatu? Or sound or whatever, or a dhatu. To me, I think that it is a reminder to talk about what is there now as not anyone or anything at all. Otherwise, it's forgotten all the time. To understand dhatu is understanding the nature of that which is not I or anything at all. It's conditioned characteristic to arise and follow away. And Buddha taught about everything now appearing to understand that there is not just one reality. They are ayatana. They are all there in a moment, experiencing an object. So what is there at the moment of seeing? Not only one reality, not only one tattoo. They are there together, but what appears is just that which can be experienced, no matter what, by a reality, another tattoo, which arises and falls away and experiences the object all the time, unknown, until it is the object of understanding when it's there. Little by little, so very little, until no doubt about it, it's just very natural in daily life. It's now, anytime, at any moment of experiences, it is that which experiences the object, which appears. Little by little, to be acquainted with what we are talking about. Seeing now, no matter what, when one opens one's eye, it's there, the reality which experiences, different from moment of being asleep.
Thank you, Achan and John and Sarah, for about your explanation. So it's very good remind us about the careful consideration about the reality now, even though it's a dhatu or it's an element, it's a a reality is like John said, it's an impersonal element. So it's now and it's real and it cannot be referred and cannot be understood as a person or something. So it's another meaning. I mean that to understand clearly about the anatta and atta, as you explained as a yesterday discussion with our Vietnamese.
All Thatu now to be reminded of the nature of it at any moment.
Yeah.
Not known yet, but it can be gradually understood.
But sometimes there's an attachment to the word, and what is different between the dhatu and the ayatana, and is another a special expression. I mean that special meaning. So to differentiate between the dhatu and ayatana and something like this. Yeah.
Yes, I think it's
Would be the understanding of the truth that all are Thatu. See, the nature of Thatu is there to be studied to understand the characteristic of that, which is Thatu, not anyone. But if there's no understanding of the nature of what is now appearing, it's still something or I.
It's power.
we just got the power back.
But we can learn more from the book of teaching.
And I think sometimes what you were saying, Hans, you hear something that you may not have heard before and you want to know what it is. And that's, well, you could be lopa, it could be jamda, it's so many things, but there's the want to know, because we want to know. Still the personal.
Yeah. And we can see that the interest with the wanting is different from the interest with moments of understanding.
Yeah.
But the clinging is so tricky, it comes in so quickly. We think because it's studying Dhamma, we assume it's the kusala interest, but sometimes it's just like you say, it's just wanting or just curiosity or just trying to catch the meaning, different from the understanding of the seeing at this moment, the understanding of the element as it is.
Or trying to figure out where the meaning in that word, the meaning of the word fits into the mental picture that has been created of various dhammas and dhatus and how things work. It's still part of that wanting to know and having it fit into the picture logically, which isn't always possible.
So any Dhamma, any reality at all is dhatu, even nibbana is dhatu. So each one is dhatu. And this is different from ayatanas, which are referring to the meeting of different realities. So at a moment of meeting together, associating together, when there is the seeing of visible object, at that moment only the seeing, the visible object, the eye sense, and the cetasikas that arise with the citta are ayatanas meeting together. So a different emphasis completely. But each of those ayatanas that meet, each one is a dhatu. Each khandha, which arises and falls away, is a dhatu. When we're talking about paticca samuppada, each link, each reality is a dhatu. But again, as Jan said, the point is the understanding of the reality now, to understand really what the meaning of dhatu is. Just an element that arises and falls away, no person, no thing to be found at all. Just an element that is gone instantly.
Is the sound in our background a problem?
Just when I started speaking, there was some echoing from somewhere, and I don't know whether it was from your end or where it was from.
Let me try this.
Maybe just make sure the volume is turned off. Yes, when someone's speaking. Yes, better.
In fact, you've been listening to heavy rain.
Anyway, lots of color in the visible object now. And so quickly thinking about red and green and different colors, different shapes instantly. If you've had a break from your Sunday evening discussions, any topic you would like to bring up before you get too sleepy? Or Tom?
Nothing comes to mind right now, but I'll speak up if there is something.
What are you reading at the moment, Tom?
No.
Not much right now. We just had our two granddaughters visiting for a couple of days. That takes up a lot of time and energy.
And Alberto, do you have any questions or topics you'd like to bring up? We haven't heard much from you for a few days.
I was thinking about prompted and unprompted sankarika, sasankarika and asankarika. The citta, when it's weak, it's I think Ajahn explained that when the citta is it's weak, it's because it's prompted. I was reading on in the Tipitaka. This also applies to kusala. So the kusala citta, 4 with the jnana sampayutta and 4 without panya, and each of them, 2 are weak and 2 are strong. So 4 strong chittas and 4 weak chittas. And I was thinking, like when hearing the truth, and there can be moment of kusala with understanding, but at the beginning it's must be very weak, so it must be prompted sasankarika kind of citta. So we need to hear the words talking about the truth, but we also need to hear the chitta, which is with understanding. And that chitta with understanding, I think, has to be unprompted, because to enable to us to have the chitta which is prompted. So I think it takes a bit more than just the words of truth. Also, it's also must be the chitta which is must have with understanding, with panya, to enable us to have even moments of pariyatti, of understanding at pariyatti level. The words, I don't think that can be enough to condition the pariyatti. Must be panya all the time, all the way, in every aspect, and not all the time, but at the time of hearing, at the time of speaking, and yeah, something like that. Yeah, just my considering on the subject of prompted and unprompted, the kusala chitta, sasankarika and asankarika.
I think we can say, like you mentioned, that when it's weak, for example, when the lobha is weak, for example, someone says, would you like an ice cream, and there's not much attachment, but one's encouraged to have it. So we could say it's sasankarika, weak attachment that is prompted at that moment. But when it's strong attachment, no need for any prompting. One sees the picture and immediately there's strong lobha, asankarika. And with understanding, one might say the same, but I think it's much more subtle, much more intricate than that. For example, we read about jhana citas as being sasankarika, even though there's such strong understanding at those moments, and we can read in detail about why it's referred to as sasankarika. So it's not just our own assumption of what is what. So it's more intricate. But anyway, I think the point is just to understand there are different kinds of attachment now, different kinds of aversion, different levels, different kinds of understanding. But let's see if Ajahn has anything more to add to your comments.
Is it daily life, but not known the difference between moment when there's the moment of doing something lazily or something with earnestly? Is it there in life? Can it be known sometimes? You don't like to eat because you are full, but someone just asks you that this is very good, have it even just a little bit, and then you take it. Different from when you like it so much, and any time that no one talk about the food, but you just have it happily, not lazily. See? So there must be the difference between the two moments, right? So there must be another factor for it to be not as eagerly, but lazily.
And this would be an example of akusala, like attachment, a moment of being prompted to have more food or or
Or the ice cream example I gave, when one doesn't really want it but was encouraged to have it. So it's attachment, but it's not so strong. It needs that prompting to eat it, different from when one just can't resist and is strong lobha. Same with the food or the ice cream.
and that would also apply to the sense that were processed in the asawas would be maybe prompted by the object, which is experienced. I'm just I think it's just speculating about what cannot be understood.
There are, in the case of Janachita, what prompts the Janachita, the previous chitta, or what does the prompting?
I think that when we read in the text, it refers to the previous moments of the development of understanding and the upachara samadhi and the different stages that condition the jhana citta, but it's quite intricate. It's just an example of how we can't just speculate on our own. We can't just say this is weak understanding, that is strong understanding. It's not quite so straightforward as that. And in Alberto's example, so I think the attachment that we're referring to, like not really wanting to eat, but being encouraged to try something, we're talking about the attachment in the mind door, not in the sense door. The attachment now that can be known when it's when one's urged by the other, and like maybe for listening to the Dhamma discussion, maybe one wasn't inclined to listen, but once with one's friends who encourage one to listen. So the interest is different in both cases. This is through the mind door.
So in the case of the Kamavachara chittas, they are prompted either by the others or by oneself. But in the case of the jhana chittas, only by the chittas in the same streams of consciousness, right? Cannot be prompted by others.
I think this is an unusual and a complex example, but generally speaking, we can say in daily life, like now, when it's weak, when it's sasankarika, then usually it needs some urging, either by one's own thinking or by the other, like perhaps one doesn't really feel like joining the Zoom, but one talks oneself into it. Alex? Anne and Han, could you mute? Could everyone mute if they're not speaking?
Also about the aspect of when saying kind words but with unkind mind, it can happen. Like maybe reciting metta with just saying the words of metta, like but without any metta, really any metta. I don't think that can condition even weak, even the weakest metta at all. Actually, it can only condition a kusala, like maybe attachment or even aversion.
Alberto, just a point if I can add there. when you said saying kind words with an unkind mind, that seems to me a little bit contradictory. I think we can maybe think about some kind words. So I'm getting a bit tied up myself saying kind words. It's like, seems like kusala and akusala. Of course, we can't have that at the same time. We might think of something kind to say, and of course, it may be unkind. Well, excuse me, I'll put it this way: it may be akusala. So, that's not always easy to say, but I often feel, I believe I know exactly what you mean, and I think it's a useful example, because we want to remain on friendly terms at times, and of course, as we know, that doesn't always happen, but that is our intention. So, and we may seem to be rather hypocritical in our own hearts about certain issues. However, it's always different moments, and because we know the chitta is, really rising and passing away so very, very quickly, then there's just many moments, and even the idea of, and I'm not saying it's always got to be a kusala. When we say kind words, sometimes amongst all that, yes, there may be some kusala, but there can be a lot of attachment. That the near enemy of metta is prema, or affection. So it's potentially it's a difficult area, and ultimately, as Tanajan would remind us and others, that it's the gradual development of understanding that'll help a better appreciation, understanding of those different moments. So we have to start, continually at this present moment, whatever reality may be appearing. But I know also, when for the purposes of questioning, we're trying to kind of tease out some of these things, and we kind of go into that area, and it's not always easy to kind of explain. But I do hear where you're coming from, and I think they're useful points.
Another example I was thinking is like the meditation teacher, which is supposed to prompt you to have understanding, or to have samatha, or to have vipassana. But even if you read the Tipitaka, it can only it cannot prompt the understanding to follow the instruction, cannot condition the result of which one thinks the prompt would carry about. What's the word?
Well, I'm thinking there, when you say the meditation teacher, and of course my mind goes in all directions, because we know a lot of them, we might say inverted commas, are well-meaning, but they're it's underpinned by ignorance. As we know, it's just a lot of silabbata, paramasa, so ritualistic behavior, which is not helpful. And even on the surface of it, it may seem to be useful to some people. We know there's just so much misunderstanding involved, and so much ignorance. So, look, I appreciate you. I'm appreciating where you're going, but I'm sometimes feeling that there's just so many different moments, as you realize, and trying to help somebody with ignorance will often just be a condition for more ignorance. So it's a kind of a difficult situation sometimes, and I guess sometimes when we're looking from the outside, I had a situation yesterday, but I heard some pretty strange stories. You just have to try, have some detachment, and hopefully some metta and karuna for the situation, which is, takes look, as we're appreciating, it takes tremendous amount of time, commitment, and dedication to Dhamma to begin to tease out some of this territory. And, you know, as we know, we're very fortunate to have people around us to help us do that.
Right. Yeah. Thank you, Sundar. Thank you, sir.
No, thank you, Alberto, too. You know, I appreciate your questions. You know, they're often, I find them thoughtful and useful, because I think any question, whatever that may be, it can be so useful for everybody. And often we think of these things ourselves and think, oh, I wonder what's going on there. And as we know, even in that, there can be a lot of attachment. At the same time, I do believe it can be really useful for other areas. You know, they can bleed into other, bleed's perhaps not the word, they can lead into other areas which are really useful for a better understanding and appreciation of Dhamma. So no, thanks very much to you too.
They can seem like kind words, but if it's unkind mind when speaking, they cannot be kind words in truth. Just like it may sound like, it may not sound kind, but if it's with the kind chittas, then it's kind. So it depends on the chitta rather than the sound of the voice.
Can you hear me?
Yes, Anne, go ahead.
Okay, good. We've had trouble with this. When Alberto was speaking earlier, he mentioned something about asavas, and I'm not sure I may not have picked it up entirely. But with the asavas, which we don't know, they're so, what are they? Are they weak that they don't appear? But I would think that would be completely unprompted, but we can't know because we don't, they don't appear. I don't know. Am I all mixed up on asavas?
Yeah, I was speculating about it, and yeah, I don't have the answer. Maybe, yeah, good question.
It was prompted, Alberto, by your question. Sarah, Ajahn, Sarah, anybody, Jonathan?
I think that usually when we talk about what is sasankarika and asankarika, we're talking about the realities that appear, the attachment that is evident, the aversion that's evident, the understanding that is evident, not the attachment that is so slight that it's unknown.
It's a topic I'm not very clear about, because what slightly puzzles me is that these are the prompting and non-prompting signifies a different citta, different reality in a sense. So, and I don't find much reference to this significance in the teachings, apart from the fact that it's used to classify kusala and akusala jittas into 8 different, or so many different types, half of which are prompted and the other half of which are unprompted. So I find that puzzling, because it's either one or the other. And are we supposed to know this feature? It's not a characteristic of the realities, it's a feature, but as far as I can figure out, it's not something that needs to be known or even can be known. So for me, it's at the moment just something in the book there.
Oh, I see that point completely. But as there's more and more understanding, is it not the case that there can be, excuse me, I'm going to sneeze. You say something.
Seemed like the whole room moved when you sneezed, Anne.
Well, it did.
Maybe it was just the camera, though.
Possibly. And now I have to remember where I was. Yeah, that which doesn't appear and can't be known, as you're talking. Well, it doesn't appear for certain with the asavas. As understanding grows and there is more and more awareness and understanding of the defilements, lopa, dosa, etc., is there a decrease in the asavas? Again, that can't be directly known, I'm sure, but is it, as we talk about letting go of defilements little by little, and as defilements are let go, I guess I'm wondering what effect that has on asavas, whether some of that is let go or not.
Well, I think the letting go is just a side effect of the understanding that's being developed. So it's all about the understanding developing, and that affects the letting go at the same time. But to what extent that aspect is seen or known, I'm not sure. And certainly we need to be aware of the notion of the development of understanding manifesting by way of lesser kusala, or perhaps the seeing of more subtle kusala.
That's the thing I was heading towards, is the seeing of more subtle kusala.
Yeah, this is not a goal in itself, of course. It may happen, but if what is now the subtle kusala that does not appear appears to develop understanding, then it's no longer an asava by definition.
Right.
So
It's there to be understood and let go.
There will still be asavas for that individual whose understanding is developing stronger and stronger. There will still be the asavas, but they will be even more subtle, I suppose, or weaker than they were when understanding was less developed. So the point of the teaching on asavas, as I see it, is to explain that just because no akusala is apparent doesn't mean it's not there, either in latent or even arisen form, but in too weak to be apparent. That's all.
That makes a lot of sense, Jonathan. That's pretty clear. So it doesn't really matter whether they're let go or not let go. The whole point is the understanding and awareness of them.
And to my understanding, it's the understanding of the nature of the realities, their characteristics of anicca, dukkha, anatta. That is the crucial factor leading to enlightenment, rather than the reduction of the akusala or the seeing of the more subtle akusala.
Yes.
Yeah, and just briefly, and kind of just to the asavas, karmasava, of course, will be with us right till arahat, to anagami arahata territory, and it's only Ditthasava that is that disappears when you come Sotapanna. And the other two, Avichasava, of course, well, that must be there right till the end. And the other one, which is not escaping me at the moment, Ditthasava, Kamasava, Bhavasava, that must also be there pretty much. Well, will be there to the end also. So, and I appreciate the point that Jonathan's making too, because it's like Sasankarika, Asankarika. They haven't, that's not what the development understanding is about. It can be a really useful area to consider, I believe. But I always appreciate Tanajan and latterly Jonathan there, just pointing out that they haven't got a characteristic, or what you can say actually, but the asavas have got a characteristic in a sense of being a kusala, but they're there. They are the condition for the kusala, of course. Without them, well, there wouldn't be life. They have to be there, and they will manifest themselves, in different ways, not necessarily in a very obvious way at times, especially when you think of karmasva, which is just another name for lobha, essentially. But as we know, sotapanna still has lobha, and as does the sakadagami, still have lobha. It's only the the anagami still has attachment, sort of attachment, but not to sensual objects. So it's an ongoing journey, and I think lobha is probably one of the more insidious dhammas, because it is the cause, it is the hetu, it's the second noble truth, the cause of suffering. It's a precipitating factor, we can say. There is dukkha, and there is its cause, which is tanha, which is another name for lobha. But I appreciated Jonathan's point, and I think it's a gradual and very slow process which needs always to be attended to. And if we forget that about the attachment that's so often just oozing out in different and subtle and gross levels, we'll still be caught up in samsara.
Thank you, both of you.
So just starting about the meditation center and the meditation teacher. I think when we go, going to meditation center, it implies some kind of asankarika chitta when going for a retreat or something like that. So even as Sarah was saying, it's not as straightforward as saying that because one listen, so it's prompted, and by speaking one is prompting. Even listening with attachment can be done. Can be unprompted. I mean, meaning strong wrong view to go to the meditation center to meditate, to do, or to sit, or to practice, etc. So not easy to say what's prompted and what is not. And also the asava, I think, is the same.
And are we thinking about situations rather than different hitas? Because just like now, or in the meditation center or while eating lunch. Regardless of the situation, there are moments with weak lobha, moments with strong lobha, moments with prompted, moments with unprompted chittas. Otherwise, we just think of a situation and think, oh, I was prompted to go to the meditation center or prompted to come to the discussion. But we're just talking about chitta that is weak or strong for a moment only. So different moments. Someone may urge one to come to the discussion. So one moment when it's weak interest, and the next moment maybe strong interest, because the chittas arise and fall away so quickly. So I don't think we could tell or judge by just thinking of different situations.
And it's
Jan has. Go ahead, Anne.
is now sasankhari or asankhari. Can it be known? And thinking about asava, when kilesa is less, lobha is less, no matter it arises at moment of asava or kilesa or nivarana, it is less than lobha. We don't have to find out whether this moment is less than that, or whether it is asava, it's still strong, and so on. The reality of lobha itself is less and less and less. So no matter it arises as asava or kilesa or nivarana, it's less than before. And now it's just thinking about inamita or weak sasankhari or asankhari. It's there by conditions, just in a moment and then gone. But the characteristic of lobha is not known at moment of thinking about the story of lobha. That's why in order to have lobha to be less and less, it depends on understanding of the moment when it's there. Even it's lobha, it has to be known as it's a reality. Otherwise, I have less lobha, weak or strong. That's why the point of listening is to understand that which now appearing, whether it appears as we have learned or not yet. Even the moment of awareness, what degree, at moment of dana or sila or bhavana. That's why we learn to understand that what is there is just what we have learned. So can there be a moment of laziness or just yawn, wanting to sleep and so on, stop working or doing anything that you'd like to finish? All depends on conditions. But the truth is that can there be a moment of beginning to understand the truth, the reality of what is there now? We have talked about no matter it is strong lobha or very weak lobha. Can the dina metta or the citasikas which arises with it can be known? Can it be known? Not just the reality which experiences the object, no matter by way of seeing, thinking, liking, hating, or whatever. No one there at all. That's why reality appears at moment when it's there. It's a moment of attachment. It's there. So it's time to understand that which is there. It's just a reality. Nobody can change. And all of them are dhatu, different dhatus. That's why I learn to understand even dhatu, not by the word dhatu, but the nature of the characteristic which is there cannot be changed. That's why all dhammas Adhatu, and anatta. But now while thinking about Dinamitta, it's just the way, the condition to understand what the Dinamitta, or the moment of Lopa, or the moment of Kusala. So the benefit of listening to the truth is that now it's the moment of condition, parami, the accumulation of all kinds of kusala, because there is understanding to understand that when kusala moment does not arise, it's there all the time, akusala. In order to have less kusala, it's moment of kusala, no matter it's by way of studying, understanding, or giving, or helping, or any kinds of kusala. In the day, it develops a very gradual, unknown, what is their condition, such speech and deeds and thinking, the thought about this and that, by conditions. And in order to understand the truth, it has to be right understanding of what is there as it is, developed by understanding gradually until what we have learned too much about strong or weak lopa can be known, but not as just this is deed or something, but it's there to be known little by little as a reality which experiences the object differently from moment to moment when it becomes the object of understanding. Right now,
Ajahn, yeah, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to mention for anyone who wasn't clear that the Tina Mida significance, usually translated as sloth and torpor in English, is because these qualities only arise with the weak kinds of lobha and dosa, the sasankarika ones. So that's the significance, like when one's too tired to listen carefully at those moments of laziness or weak in this interest, but it's weak interest with Tina Mida at those moments, or when there's just a little bit of boredom, a slight aversion, which has been prompted. Tina and Mida are there. So that was the point. Carry on, Alberto.
Yeah, I was asking about Tinamida. Thank you for clarifying this aspect. Thanks.
They just arise with the weak attachment and weak aversion, the sasankarika, lobha and dosa. Go ahead, Hung. Hi, Hung.
Yes, following up the sasankarika and asankarika, the chitta. So I'm wondering why the moha mula chitta is asankarika. It's not.
Okay. Sarah, we can't hear you.
We cannot hear you.
The moha mula chitta is neither sasankarika or asankarika.
Oh, I see. But in the book we read that Tina and Mida is not arising is the moha mula chitta because it's
that's right.
Yes.
They only arise with the sasankarika dhammas,
Yes.
so with lobha and dosa, but not with moha, because moha is never sasankarika. So just with weak lobha and dosa chittas. So of course moha is there with the lobha and dosa, but they don't arise with moha mula chittas without lobha and dosa. Because when there's just no knowing, there's no the prompted, strong or weak doesn't apply.
Thank you.
And just getting back to Anne's question or comment about the asavas and so forth, I think there's a widespread view, and one hears it expressed quite often anyway, that it's by seeing the agusala that the agusala is overcome or got rid of. But to my understanding, that's not the situation. That's not what the Buddha said. He didn't say that the way to reduce or to get rid of agusala is to see the agusala. And he said that it's by developing understanding that eventually the agusala is totally eradicated. Now, it's understanding of any reality that counts, and it's by seeing that all conditioned realities are anicca, dukkha, anatta. That is the basis for the enlightenment that eradicates the different agusala, and not only those that have been seen, but the agusala that is latent and has not been seen, the latent tendencies that are accumulated and which may never have manifested, particularly in a lifetime, are necessarily eradicated, because the nature of realities in samsara has been understood to a certain level.
Thank you. That's I can see how it's difficult to really pinpoint that, but it all makes sense, and it all comes down to the awareness and understanding of the reality that is appearing now, leading to the letting go of the defilements. And at what point in the process, I don't even want to call it a process, at what point what is lessened and or what is removed, it doesn't really matter.
Can I just add something about Jonathan's? I think that it's understanding is arises with kusala citta only, and akusala ignorance cannot understand anything. So as the arising of kusala prevents kusala from arising, including understanding. So at some stage, akusala has to give way to kusala for understanding to understand, because otherwise it's just akusala.
Well, it's the same as right now, Alberto, that just because there's lots of agusala doesn't mean there can't be moments of kusala with understanding.
Yeah, I think we're saying the same things, but from different angles, different aspects of the. I see your point.
Well, because you said at some stage the agusala has to give way. Well, that is happening now. There are moments of kusala in daily life, of different kinds of kusala, even though there are strong accumulations for all different kinds of agusala. And they arise, the kusala arises by conditions, just as the agusala arises by conditions. And the kusala moments can include moments of awareness and understanding if there are conditions for those accumulated tendencies to arise and to develop and become stronger gradually over a long period of time.
Yeah, and the difference between akusala and kusala is that kusala is much more rare than akusala. So that's the reason. The reason why we need to develop it, because it's underdeveloped. It's very little, so it needs development. It needs to support the understanding. Every kind of kusala helps. Any kusala helps. But I think that let's say without the understanding, there can be a kusala, but it cannot develop because it's the understanding which is developed. We can condition the development of kusala and all kind of kusala. I think that's what I understand from listening to Ajahn and reading.
But if I could just make a general comment, the kusala develops because of its own conditions, not because of any reduction in the akusala. So the kusala develops regardless of the prevalence. Kusala develops regardless of the presence, or not at the same moment, of course, but regardless of there being akusala most of the time. And kusala can arise in the midst of akusala, even strong akusala too. That's because it has its own conditions to arise. And in terms of understanding, those conditions, of course, include hearing the Dhamma and considering the Buddha's teaching, as we are urged to do from time to time.
And the development of understanding to the level of understanding realities, the rising and falling away, that prevents the strong akusala from arising, because for example, Sotapanna cannot commit akusala kamapata, which means no strong, not akusala to that strength anymore.
Yes, but by that stage, kusala has been developed to a very, very high degree already. Not enough, of course, but the reduction in akusala is a consequence of the development of kusala. It's not the precursor of the development of kusala. That's the point to consider.
I just have a very quick point for Hung. So Hung, with regard to the sasankarika and asankarika, so 8 kinds of lobha mula citas for sasankarika, for asankarika, and 2 kinds of dosa mula citta, always with unpleasant feelings. So 1 kind is sasankarika, 1 kind is asankarika. And then there are 2 kinds of moha mula citta, 1 kind with vichikicha and 1 kind without. And it doesn't mention anything about sasankarika, asankarika, because the terms don't apply, because as the commentary mentions, no one ever deliberately tries to arouse them, so they can never be described as prompted, sasankarika. And because they never have the natural strength or acuteness, they can't be described it as asankarika. So the labels just don't apply. So they're never referred to as sasankarika or asankarika. That was the point.
Thank you, Sarah.
Yeah.
Details.
Yeah. And I think, Alberto, it's a good point that it is the development of understanding that leads to the wearing away of akusala, like those who had attained the highest jhanas and great kusala before the Buddha's time. It never led to one tiny bit of understanding of the path, even though so little akusala was there in a day for those teachers or for those like Sariputta and Moggallana before meeting. So that's why other kinds of kusala without understanding of the path are referred to in the commentary as the wrong path. So when there's kusala, there's no akusala at those moments. So much better to have kusala than akusala, but it's only the development of right understanding that is the right path that leads to the eradication of akusala. And perhaps Ajahn may have anything more to add because we just have a little bit of time.
So the path is right now, so very subtle. Who knows that the more understanding, even so little, is on the path to understand what is there now. As long as what is there in daily life is not known, it's impossible and it cannot eradicate all kinds of akusala and the wrong understanding, which is there all the time as ditthasava. See, that's why, how can there be understanding of asva? Because so very quickly and very, very slight. But now, who sees? That's the answer. All the time it's there. No matter after seeing or hearing, smelling, tasting, touching. So only dhammas work their ways. No one there at all. No matter it is the namitta or lopamurucita, whatever is there. But understanding little by little that they are now appearing all the time, not known at all, until hearing a little more about, we are talking about each time when we talk about Dhamma, it's all about what is there now to be known until it can be known by direct awareness of whatever is there. For example, hardness now, it's hard to see, no word, because it cannot change its characteristic. No one can change any characteristic at all. But learning from that, it's instantly by condition, anatta, the understanding of hardness, begin to understand, but not by the word dhatu, but by the moment of it is there as just a reality. Learning to understand naturally by conditions. That's why it takes quite a long time to condition moment of understanding what we have been talking about, that is right there at any moment. So meditation is not just going somewhere to try to get something or realize something, but now if it's not known, what's the use of trying to do something else? Because at the moment of trying to do something different from understanding naturally of that which now is useless, as long as there's not any moment of understanding this moment as it is. That's why be patient, Santi Barami, with Viriya Barami and Satya Barami, that what can be known is right now when it's time, not by anyone at all, because thinking about asva It is moment of understanding, seeing, when the other moment, no understanding of seeing. At any moment of understanding, seeing, aswa is there. So it's not intention to try to have less aswa, but the understanding of any reality, condition, moment of less and less strong, accumulation of akusla, even lopa and avijja. So now we are on the way. That's why understanding what is the way to understand Dhamma is understanding only at any moment, little by little. It conditions moment of understanding gradually about what is there as dhatu. And we don't have to use the term dhatu because it's so real and it cannot be changed. And then this is accumulated instead of ignorance and kilesa as it usually accumulated, little by little. So how deep it is, how far it is, and this understanding of the truth is letting go, wearing away, little by little, so very little, but not as the moment when right understanding is aware, together with understanding of what is there now by conditions. So it's the most precious moment to understand even just the truth of whatever is there. And it's time now. สวัสดีค่ะ
ครับอาจารย์ครับ สวัสดีค่ะท่านอาจารย์
นะครับขอบคุณครับ
Thank you, Swamin Sar.